So before we get going, I think it would be great to go around and do a round of introductions. I know we've got some new folks on the call. So, if you could just say your name and what congregation you're with, that would be great. And again, welcome to, those who have new to the Green Team Roundtables. This is a monthly opportunity for green teams across the state to connect, to learn from one another, to share ideas and resources and challenges, and just an opportunity for you all to meet each other and for us to share some upcoming opportunities and events with all of you. So it's great to see so many of you on the call this evening. So if we can just kind of popcorn around, so I invite you to just come off of mute and share your name and your congregation, and then we'll get started with our program for this evening.
This is Jim Somerville, First Presbyterian Church of Marietta, Georgia.
I'm Linda Scott. I'm from St. Catherine's in Marietta. It's my first time, so I'm new to the group.
Welcome.
I'm Sandy Scammell. I'm from All Saints Episcopal Church in Warner Robins.
I'm Ken Alexander from St. Clair's Episcopal Church in Blairsville, first time attendee as well.
I'm Frances Mason from St. Francis of Assisi in Blairsville. It's my first time attending as well.
Yeah, I'm Karen Anderson Cordova from Emerson Universalist Unitarian Church in Marietta, and this is my first time as well.
I'm Bert Pierce with the UU Congregation of Atlanta.
I'm Myrtle Lewin with the AA Synagogue, Ahavat Achim Synagogue in Atlanta.
I'm Hobie Stocking from Decatur. I don't have a congregation. I work on a clean energy and climate program here. It's my first time.
My name is Ayana Pope, and I'm representing Mountain Welcome Missionary Baptist Church. We are in Decatur if you need a congregation.
I'm David Alley. I'm from Asbury Memorial in Savannah.
I'm Elizabeth Suddeth. I'm from Central Presbyterian Church, downtown Atlanta.
Carol Galanti, Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Atlanta.
I'm Sherry Panofka. I'm with Myrtle at AA Synagogue. And sorry, I haven't put my picture on, but I will in a bit.
I'm Patricia Russell from UUCA in Atlanta.
I'm Brooke Rosenthal with Myrtle Lewin, AA Synagogue, and Sherry.
Thanks so much for sharing, for introducing yourselves. I just put a Green Team member form in the chat. So if you have not filled this form out for us yet, we would love to get your contact information so that we can add you to our email list and keep you informed of what's happening and make sure that you know about these upcoming roundtables as well. So if you can take a minute to just fill out the form quickly, we would appreciate that. So tonight, we're really happy to have some folks here from the AA Synagogue who are going to share with us a little bit about their composting efforts and other initiatives. This is a green team that has been around for a while, and I'll let them share a little bit about the history of their green team and their congregation and what they've been working on. So thank you for being here tonight and for being willing to share with us. So we'll let them present, and then we'll have some time for Q&A, so you can ask them questions about what they've been up to, and then we'll kind of move into a time of more general sharing, so you all can, tell us what you've been working on, ask us questions, and then Joanna and I have a couple of GIPL updates for you all at the end of the call. But Myrtle, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you all hear me clearly? Yes, good. The green team, well, we called ourselves the greeting group at our synagogue, has been around for about 9 years now. And a lot of what we've done, because we have quite a large tract of land, if you've ever driven up Northside Drive, you see all these churches with beautiful big gardens and what have you. Well, we're the synagogue on that street, and our garden isn't necessarily as beautiful, but it's certainly big. And we started off with a huge amount of cleanup. We cleaned up tons of trash along Northside Drive and elsewhere. We de-ivied a whole lot of trees. We did stuff like that for a while. And then we began thinking about recycling, when recycling was the sort of new thing that you absolutely had to do. And we've had recycling around for several years. We're still not doing it well. And then about 4 years ago was it? We decided that we really wanted to start composting. And we have what we call a Saturday morning kiddush after service on Saturday, where we sort of bring out a sort of smorgasbord of food and what have you. And because of the issues of kashrut, of sort of laws of keeping kosher, we really can't have people bring in their coffee cups and stuff like that. And so we slowly transitioned to using compostable plates and cutlery. But what we did was totally and completely wrong. And I think this is what I want to try to bring to you today, because I think in the course of time, having been to enough GIPL and IPL meetings and other various sort of environmental meetings, you begin to learn about advocacy, and you learn that you can't force people to do anything. You have to convince people that they are allies with you, that they are advocates, that they buy into what you're trying to do. And just having a compost bin there with a big sign saying put this here and put that there, and standing there like a guard where you should be chatting with friends and saying put this here and do that and no, this is wrong, didn't work. And in a certain sense, the pandemic saved us, because all of that closed down. It just totally closed down. And so fast forward, gosh, about 18 months. And I mean, the offices were closed down, everything was closed down, except the preschool opened up fairly quickly. And so Brooke and I, Brooke, where are you? I think she might be, she was there a moment ago, but she's got children. So Brooke and I got together and began to think about it. And we decided that what we had to do was to completely rethink things. Now, the guide for my rethinking these things was actually a presentation that I heard, and I'm not sure whether it was a GIPL meeting or an IPL meeting, but it was a woman in a church in North Carolina who described how her community had embraced composting. And they had done it slowly, and they had done it very gently, and they had sort of invited people to participate with ideas, and it had slowly worked itself up until it was really functioning. And one of the things they did is they had a kind of drive-through composting thing where you could bring your compost and turf it into something and then drive off. So what we decided to do, Brooke and I, was to bring back a Compost Now single bin. If you know what that is, the roller carts, they're about this big, I think they're 36 gallons. And we sent out little messages to all the teachers and parents at the preschool and the people who were on staff, who were largely working at home, but certainly the maintenance staff was working on site, to offer them compost buckets if they would like to collect their own compost at home and bring it along and just dump it into this thing once a week. And we got, 5 or 6 takers. We moved up to about 8 or 9 takers. And I'm one of them, which I loved. That began to work reasonably well. And then what is lovely about Compost Now is that they send you these monthly impact reports. So you can see, oh, in January, we produced so many, whatever the units are of compost, and in February it was a little bit more, and in March it was a little bit more. And Brooke started sending these emails out to the participants saying, yeah, look what we did. And that I also think was useful. But the big thing that bothered both of us was that we had this preschool and the preschool wasn't composting. And it wasn't because they didn't want to, because originally pre-COVID, they had tried to compost, but they had one of these roller cart bins in the building and fruit flies were in it. And the food inspectors came along and they said, you get this out of here. And no, I'm not there. And okay. And it's only my daughter, but that's okay. No, Lana, I'm in a meeting. Lana, I'm in a meeting. I'm in a meeting. Okay, bye. We kind of had to backtrack from composting at the preschool. And so then I had a long conversation with Compost Now. You see, this is doing things slowly and deliberately. And I confronted them with the issues we had and we looked for solutions. And so what they suggested is we have their little 4-gallon bins and we have 5 of them delivered once a week now. And each day, one of them gets filled and taken out. So there's nothing left inside overnight. And that's been running for what, 2 or 3 weeks now. And in order to do that, we actually got a GIPL grant, because GIPL had these mini grants that were offered, $500, and $500 sets us up for, well, what about 8 or 9, 10 weeks, something like that. So that was our kind of startup fund. And so in doing this, people teaching in the school have started to say, but you know, that's all very well collecting everything that's in the kitchen. But what they've been doing is they've been using these compostable sort of container things, and the kitchen serves the food, and each child has his or her own little plate and cutlery and what have you in their little pods, in their little classrooms. There's no communal eating. And then all of that stuff is being trashed. And so now we're in the process of trying to transform that so that even their food waste and their containers are composted, which means we've got to enlarge the program and we've got to find out ways to do it. And actually, we are in the middle of that now. But the message I think I want to sort of send with this, and then Brooke, I'll let you come in and say whatever you'd like to add to this, is that we did this with such enthusiasm from the preschool that the person running the kitchen wanted to do it, the director of the preschool wanted to do that, but we had teachers wanting us to do this. And that just made all the difference. So Brooke, over to you. What would you like to add?
Yeah, the thing I'd like to add is that we had a vision from the start to get people a taste and flavor of how easy composting can be, and to try and get them to do it on their own at some point. So we provide, I'm sorry, my Zoom completely blanked out, so I didn't hear everything you said, Myrtle. But maybe you mentioned this. We wanted to, we gave people little buckets for their kitchen to encourage them to start composting to make it easier. And then the intention is to let it roll for like 6 months, and I do periodic check-ins with them to see if they are composting, if they have any questions. And then after about 6 months or so, if they're going strong, I'm going to encourage them to get their own Compost Now delivery going, if it's available. So it's sort of a two-pronged goal.
That works very well for people in apartments can't do that easily. But yes, it's, you know, how do you spread the message? I think that the way in which COP26 kind of ended with this focus on methane, or a certain awareness of methane, I think the timing is good, that people are thinking more about this than they might have in the past. I mean, the reason that we're doing this is that preventing so much food waste going into landfills is one of the major things that we can do on this planet in order to make a difference, as long as we do it in large enough numbers and huge enough quantities. So yeah, there's a certain awareness, but there's also this feeling that you do something because it's worthwhile doing for yourself, because it serves that purpose of educating your own mind, tuning yourself. You can frame this in religious terms if you'd like to. I like to think of this as looking through the world through a Jewish lens. But there are all these different ways of justifying that this is really good, worthwhile work.
Thank you so much, Myrtle, for sharing about your composting program and how you all got started. One or two things that I want to note before I open it up for questions is, one, we are happy to help you all start composting at your congregation or even at your home. So if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to either Joanna or I, and we can have a conversation about it. You know, the way that Myrtle has done it is through Compost Now, which is an option for congregations who are inside the 285 perimeter in Atlanta. I know that there are congregations on this call who are not in Atlanta, so we would love to talk to you and we can do some research and see if there are companies in your area who do commercial composting. But if not, we can talk to you about how you can start a compost pile on your own, because there are definitely ways that you all can do it without a commercial composter. The second thing that I want to touch on is Myrtle had mentioned that they got some seed grant money through our 4 Directions Fund program. So this is an opportunity for congregations to attend a workshop. So during COVID, this workshop, which was called Sacred Activism, was being held virtually. But we are excited that we are going to start transitioning back to in-person workshops. So the in-person workshop is about 3 hours, and it works really well as like a retreat, or could be a great opportunity for your green team. If there's like a couple of you who are interested in kind of diving deep into, you know, thinking about creation care, this workshop kind of goes through the process. It uses Joanna Macy's work of kind of thinking about the things that are breaking your heart and how you can move from a place of like grief and despair to hope. And, you know, one of the things that we hope comes out of this workshop is, you know, it gives you a chance to work with your green team to talk about what projects that you might want to work on, what things like you might want to do as a congregation to kind of bring some hope and life back into the climate conversation, because I think that it can feel really overwhelming and negative at times. And so this is a great workshop to kind of get to know each other better, and then to identify some things that you might be able and you know, excited about focusing on as a congregation. So if you think that's of interest to you and to your green team or to your congregation, please let us know, and we'd be happy to schedule those workshops for sometime in the spring. We're following COVID precautions, and we'll talk to you about what that looks like for your congregation if we want to wait until spring and do it outside, or you know, we know that as we're kind of moving out of the pandemic a little bit more, that we'll continue navigating that with in-person workshops. But I think this is a great opportunity. And once you attend that workshop, then you're eligible to apply for up to $500 in seed grant money to implement a project of your choice. So this is a great way to get some funding for projects that you're interested in. So I just wanted to touch on those 2 things, but I want to open it up now for questions that you all have for Myrtle and Brooke.
Yeah, hi. I know very little about composting. Is your congregation is like a place where people bring food waste, and it sounds like they put it in bins, and then I'm wondering what you do with that compost. Do you have like a garden that you use? No. to use that compost, because our church has pretty extensive gardens. I'm not sure if I've never heard us, solicit food waste from our parish, but it sounds like if you have a garden, compost is a good place to put it. But I guess if you don't have a garden, then they're like recycling centers where you take it. That's what I thought I heard.
Ken, that's a really good question. I didn't even start with talking about that, and I apologize. So let me perhaps fill in some of the details. It's not difficult to compost food waste if you have a yard, if you have some yard space. But it's not a good idea to compost animal food waste, fish, anything like that, because you're going to attract rodents. You can certainly compost vegetable food waste quite easily. And in fact, we have a large compost pile at our synagogue, and largely it has leaves and plants and weeds and stuff like that we put on it. If you do it really properly, you have one area for new stuff, and then you turn it over to a second area, and then you turn it over to a third, and like 2 years later, you've got really great compost at that end. So that's one option. Another option is to actually purchase a composter. And we have a beautiful composter on our campus. Brooke, thank you. It was a gift from you. And it's a big tub, the one we've got. Oh my gosh, how big? Maybe kind of like this. And you can actually turn it. You can open a lid and put stuff in, and you can turn it. Very hard to turn. And it's kind of making compost, but it's closed so that you can't have rodents and stuff like that into it. But I still wouldn't put meat or fish products into that. And you can't compost in your yard. You can't compost this whole slew of what are called compostable materials. Like if you go to some of these, like a Whole Foods or some of these other places, you can get your takeout food in a compostable container. That would not compost if you just put it out in your yard, because it requires a little bit, or it would take longer, or it requires more heat to do that. I mean, you know that if you had, say, a pile of mulch, that it actually cooks, it gets hot. And you need that heat in order to have stuff biodegrade. So what Compost Now and other composting companies do is they collect your composting and they take them to some kind of site. And I think in terms of the that's okay. In terms of regulations in the city of Atlanta, it can't be inside the city of Atlanta and what have you. It's actually rural, and they do have a heat process whereby they break stuff down fairly quickly. And one of the advantages is that you get so many little bags of compost once you supply them with a certain amount of compost. So that's the way these companies work, that they actually do the hard work of composting quickly. So it's not as if it's a totally natural process, but it will compost down those compostable plates, and it will compost down those knives and forks that look as if they're plastic, but they're actually made of cornstarch and so on. Is that helpful?
Yes, very much. It sounds like there's a fair amount of education to do with the folks that you're asking to contribute to food waste. This is the kind of stuff we want. Please don't give us, fish or animal food. And then maybe in the bins where you're collecting this stuff, there's a sign that says, "Good, here's the good stuff we want. Don't put this stuff in there as well." Do you have something like that?
Well, Compost Now will take fish and meat stuff.
Okay.
But if you go to a sort of a natural composting site, what was in the chat? Somebody put something in the chat.
There's a bunch of URLs which I've been trying to collect here.
So if I could also jump in for a moment, so people are kind of self-selecting, like we sent out an email to the preschool community and the synagogue community and said, who wants to compost, let me know. And once they expressed some interest in the beginning, I would send them, and I would send them, can you hear me okay?
It's better.
Okay. I would send them a clear email about what to do, and also attachments from Compost Now, what is acceptable in the composting bins. So yes, it definitely takes some education, but there's pretty easy ways to do it. Compost Now has these, slick looking flyers that anybody could access to see. And I love how the fact that we can choose to use the compost in our garden, we can order it, or they'll donate it to other places in the community that can also use it. So it never goes to waste, as far as I know.
And I'll just throw this in. I'm not sure if it was clarified, but Compost Now brings a bucket to you and you fill it up. And when it's full, you put it back out on the curb on a given day and they come by and pick it up. Is that how it's working, Myrtle, for you guys?
Yes, and you don't send anything out. They take away the full one and they deliver an empty one that has clearly been flushed out with hot water or something of the kind. So it's a very easy process.
Yeah, I take the service at my home too. So we just do the exact same thing at home.
Is it the home ones are the smallest bins? Are those the same bins you're using at the synagogue right now?
Yes.
Right. I was gonna say that's actually the only bin size that they're picking up currently, because we actually did composting at my synagogue before COVID, and they actually give you the really big bins, and they're pausing that. Yes, yeah, Brooke is showing you. Yeah, that's the bin. That's perfect for a home, and if you have several of them, that can work for a congregation. But we had the big, tall one, and once they resume doing commercial pickups, you could possibly do that at your congregation if you're in the service area.
Yeah, what Compost Now actually suggested, it was their idea, was that we get 5 of these little bins like the one Brooke showed you. We get 5 of them delivered a week, and each day the person who is in the kitchen, the chef, has one that he fills and then he closes and puts it outside to be picked up. So that he's starting with a clean bin each day. And that was their solution. Apparently that's been used with a number of preschools. So it was just one way of getting around this fruit fly problem.
I'll just add another thing. We did a little bit of this at UU Congregation of Atlanta. I just brought my home compost bucket in and we used it. But one thing you have to watch out for is things like your average paper plate and paper cup that you buy at the grocery store. You cannot put in these buckets. They have to have a certification from somebody like BPI, the Biodegradable Products Institute, that it will break down when taken to one of these commercial composters. So don't think you can just start throwing styrofoam and average paper cups into the bins.
This is David Alley in Savannah. I just put a link to an organization. Actually, it's a husband and wife called Code of Return. It's COR Compost. They've got a lot of advocacy material about the value of composting. They did a presentation for our congregation, for our green team. And as soon as we start having Wednesday night suppers again, we're going to partner with them to recycle or to compost what's the waste. But they have a home service. It's just a little bucket that you collect food waste throughout the month. They come every 2 weeks, pick it up. And when you get enough compost, then they bring you the finished product. They have a big site at a school. They bring you the finished product that you can put in your garden. And I put it in mine at the beginning of the fall, and I've got the best crop of kale and collards and lettuce and all sorts of wonderful things as a result. So if you want to read up some value of composting, that's a good organization. They're trying to expand all over the state.
I wonder, is anyone doing composting on their own, just using from the kitchen and just putting in the vegetable matter? I'd like to hear about it if anyone is.
I tried in the past. We had one success and one super gooey, icky product. And then we kind of gave up, and then some years later, compost now started up, and now we're doing that.
I
I
home
compost at
compost.
home. I compost at home and with a bucket about that size. And I just take it out to my back area, and I have 2 different places. And I do coffee grounds, paper, all vegetables and fruit, scraps, no meat. But it's amazing what wonderful dirt it's turned into. The other place, if any of you live near Zonalite, actually Carol told me about that. There's a Zonalite Park, which is the intersection of Briar Cliff there in the Sage Hill area. There is a public composting place where you can take your bucket. If you want to buy the bucket at home and collect it, and you don't want to put it in your yard and you're close there, you can drive it over there. And Carol, you might talk a little bit more about that, because I think you use that, don't you?
Yes, I do. I go almost every week. It's located by Briarcliff Animal Clinic off of Briarcliff Road on Johnson Road on Zonalite, and it's a community garden, and that's what they use the compost for. So it's going toward the gardens there. That anybody can plant a garden, but I don't do that. But I've been doing it regularly, and it's worked great. So I don't have to keep it at home.
Yeah.
I teach at Georgia Gwinnett College in Lawrenceville, and we got a composting system from Foodwell Alliance that lets we compost waste from the dining hall and use it in our campus farm. And I believe that the Zonalite Park farm got their system through Foodwell as well. I'm not sure how far outside of Atlanta Foodwell extends. I know they're working on it, but they are a great resource to learn about composting or organic gardening as well.
One more note about composting is that in the new year in 2022, we will be launching our WasteWise program. And so we will come out to your congregation and do a waste audit to kind of assess your waste practices. But as part of that, we could certainly talk about composting and help you figure out kind of what your food waste is that you're generating right now, and what composting system might work for your congregation. So if that's something that you all are interested in, know that that is coming in 2022, and that that would be, a good opportunity. Part of what the program will give you when you register is a long document with information about recycling and composting and waste reduction strategies and sustainability policies. But part of that will include information about how to compost on your own, what kinds of things you can put in compost, kind of the difference between commercial composting and your own composting that you would just do in your backyard. So that's a resource that we're working on and that we're excited to launch in January.
I think when it comes to composting and even recycling also, it's a good opportunity to look at what are you throwing away, and should you be throwing all that away? So I know that, when you're composting, I did this at my kids' school, and I saw so much food that was barely touched and thrown away. So it sort of opened up the conversation. Maybe don't pack so much for your kids if they're not going to eat it, or tell them to bring it home. So it can open up a lot of opportunities to really look at, reducing food waste, finding a place for that food to go if there is an alternative. And then the materials that end up in the compost bin, even if you have compostable plates and forks, is there an opportunity, if there's a small gathering, to use real plates and real forks? Because then you're not throwing anything away. So it's sort of composting is great, but there's even better, which is, zero. So yeah, just something to think about.
No, it's about 8:10 right now, and Joanna and I have a couple of things to share at the end of the call, but I wanted to open up some time for you all to share things that you're working on, questions that you have kind of for the group. I know there are some folks on the call who are here for the first time. So, as you're thinking about starting your green team and your initiatives, are there things that we can help you with, questions that you have? Things that you all want to share. I want to open it up for kind of a general time of sharing and question asking.
Well, I'm Karen from Emerson UU, and this is my first time coming to these meetings. We used to have, before COVID, we had started, I wasn't directly involved, but I know we had started composting, and something happened that we had some issues. And I think what Myrtle said about trying to not force people to do something, you can't ram it down anybody's throat. I mean, there has to be, I think some of us were a little bit too enthusiastic and assumed that everybody else would be on the same page, and didn't take the time to kind of explore where people were coming from. And so it backfired, I think. So I think we probably have to kind of start over. And we even did, in terms of food waste, we even had like an activity at the church where people brought, where we made a purpose of using everything that would have no waste. We used real plates and real silverware, and cloth napkins and cloth rags and everything else, and no plastic, or at least eliminate as much plastic as possible. And people are really excited about that and realize that it's possible to do. It takes a little planning, but it's possible. And we did a lot of that. And now we kind of, the group has changed, because some of the leadership from our team have kind of moved on to other things, or have left the congregation, and so we're starting to gear up again. And I'm glad to be able to participate here and get some ideas as to what we could be focusing on. And I also, at a personal level, we do have a compost in our backyard, and frankly, we just throw things in there, and we know it's just vegetable stuff. We know we can't put any animal, and I'm also a member of our garden club, and we once had somebody come and talk about composting and what you can put in and what you can't, and that was very helpful for me, because I had no idea. I thought you could just throw everything in there. And we've got, we put seeds in, so we've got like avocado trees that come up in our compost, and of course they die once there's a freeze. And although I have one in a big pot, and I bring it in and out, during the year. It's about, I would think, about 8 feet tall now. And we have 2 peach trees that came up in our compost. So because we just have it open, and I don't know if we're supposed to put seeds in or not. So anyway, we do it at home, and I think we haven't not been doing it at church. Also, during COVID, we weren't having any activities at church that involved cooking or food. And unfortunately now everything has to be prepackaged, and you can't share food or anything like that. We have more waste now than we used to, because everything is packaged. So how we deal with that, that's a good question. How do we deal with that? Anyway, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Karen, that last question is a really important question, and Hannah and Joanna, if we could do a session on that, that would be just great.
How to get rid of wrappers or plastic?
Well, how to deal in general with the negative effects of all this COVID awareness, which is destroying the awareness of climate crisis issues, I think. So it's this very difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love a session on plastic waste. Talk about something that really bothers me tremendously. That's the thing I feel so guilty and horrendous about every single day. And I thought this hefty bag program might be a great answer. And then Myrtle told me they incinerate the plastic. So that doesn't sound like a proper solution. So yeah, every time, I can't tell you how it breaks my heart, and I have this dilemma on a daily basis when I have plastic in my hand and I have to choose this stupid bag or the trash. So yes, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah, that's definitely something that we can talk about. And I mean, there's not one good answer. I think, so much of it is kind of this systemic problem of everything that you find in the store comes in a plastic wrap or a plastic container. And so I think so much of what this solution is kind of educating other people. Like, I think folks on this call are kind of aware of that issue, but broader education about the problem and all of the problems associated with plastic waste. But we could definitely talk about some advocacy opportunities around that. There are some ways that you can get involved in kind of thinking about this systemically, and then things that you all can do to alter like individual behaviors and congregational behaviors to reduce plastic waste at those levels.
Yes, I put in the chat, there is this organization, breakfreefromplastic.org, and they do have some advocacy sort of campaigns that they have around the world, and there are some that are, growing in support here in the States. But in several countries in Europe, they're banning plastic. We're just not there yet, but we ought to be. There is also TerraCycle. I don't know if anyone's familiar with TerraCycle. You can send anything to TerraCycle and it will be recycled, but it's expensive. You have to buy a box and it comes to your house. You can put toothpaste, tubes, broken electronics. You can put anything, but you do pay for that large box and then you ship it to them. But yeah, ideally you don't have it to begin with instead of being stuck with it and then you don't know how to dispose of it properly.
Well, that's news to me because I went on the TerraCycle website and I signed up, but I had to sign up for like a specific product's plastic waste. So I was confused. But you say you can send anything in that box?
Yeah, I'm gonna put in the chat. It's called they have a zero everything box, they call it, where you can put anything in this zero waste box. And you can, there's a lot of things you can put in there.
Okay.
Those little plastic toys that you find in your house, and you're not even sure where you got them. I have some of those.
Oh yeah.
All kinds of things. They have lots of box. You can't get just the plastic wrapper box. You can get specific ones, but if you have a lot of different types of waste that you don't know what to do with, that is an option.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And last plug, there are some stores that have a TerraCycle box. So for example, there's this very, nice little natural makeup store right on North Highland in Virginia Highlands. And they have a TerraCycle box. So you can bring your old makeup.
Oh,
So
really?
any kind of like old mascara, lipstick tubes, lotion containers, you can bring that to that store.
What store is that?
It's called Fig and Flower. I'll put that in the chat.
Oh, okay.
And all these are lovely, but it's, the parking's tricky and it's this one store, you wish it was everywhere, but I
did not know that.
I bring my plastics, and if I don't have time to go to Charm, I go to Publix, and Publix has a place you can put your styrofoam and some like cellophane plastic, and they have bins. At least the one at Ainsley Mall does.
Plastic bags, I think.
Yeah, plastic bags and other plastic
Styrofoam,
things.
yeah.
So I bring all that stuff there.
Yeah. I am doing the hefty bag program and it is being, I guess, burned for, but maybe used for fuel. So, and I'm, like you can put anything in there that doesn't, not ones and twos plastic, but wrappers and chip bags. And anyway, I am doing that because I was trying to get to zero waste, but not there yet.
Pat, what is the Hefty Bag program?
It's a program that's not offered in DeKalb County yet, Bert. It's only, it started, I think, in Cobb County, wasn't it? We talked about that on the recycling, I think, Joanna and Hannah. But City of Atlanta decided to try it. It's a trial program, and they are taking, you have to buy the orange bags. I happened to get one in the mail and saw it, and I thought, what is this? And it said, oh, we'll take all these things that aren't recycled anymore. And so I kind of looked into it, and Charm is supporting it as well. So, but it is being burned. It is plastic that is being burned for alternative fuel is how I understand it.
Okay.
How about you? Maybe you all can add more to it, that program. I don't know.
I think you did a good job summarizing it. I mean, I think the benefit of it is that it does offer an opportunity to recycle like hard to recycle materials like plastic candy wrappers, chip bags, things like that. But of course, like the environmental impact then of burning plastics, that's a consideration. So, one of the best ways like that I have heard to like think about how you prioritize these issues is to kind of pick one issue that you're focused on. So if you're really focused on recycling and getting rid of your recyclables and not putting anything in the landfill, then maybe this is a good option in terms of turning your plastics into something else. But kind of thinking more broadly about the environment as a whole, there are definitely some implications of burning fuels. So burning plastic for fuel. So I think there are trade-offs like there are with a lot of these issues. But I think it's definitely something worth trying out, and I'll be curious to kind of see what the impact is after this trial run is over, and what information Hefty can provide and Charm in the City of Atlanta and all of these places that are trying this program. I'll be interested to see if they measure how much waste it is diverting and what some of the impacts are of burning those materials.
Yeah, I actually had more confidence in the program when I realized that Charm was supporting it, because I feel we're really fortunate to have that company for hard to recycle items. And I know that, they're not going to take anything unless they have a use for it and are able to keep it out of the landfill.
I tried it when Cobb County started it, I don't know, a couple years ago, I guess. I went online recently and I couldn't find anything more about it. And I can't find those little orange bags anywhere. I guess you have to order them on the internet, and they're like $8 for 20 of them or something.
Kroger is the
yeah, I've gone to every Kroger in Cobb County and I can't find them. So
yeah, our Kroger at Ainsley Mall carried them, and I did buy a box, and I don't know, see how long
I never heard anything more about it, so I don't even know if they're still doing it. But if they're doing it in Atlanta, maybe they're still doing it in Cobb. Be worth looking
Yeah,
at.
I think so. I think it's now Gwinnett, Cobb.
Oh, okay.
For some reason, DeKalb is not one of the counties yet. I do know that.
Well, I live in Cobb and I had never heard of it, so I didn't know about it. It's not like they broadcast it very well.
Not anymore. I got into it when it was a trial thing. So.
Well, this has, go ahead, Bert.
I was just going to say, I'll share a tip that I got from someone at Charm. I don't know if you all know about Charm. It's the Center for Hard to Recycle Materials. But anyway, one of their reps, actually, I think it was at one of the Green Team Summit meetings a few years back. And I was asking about recycling of plastic bags. And she said that any bag that you can take, and if you hold it with your thumbs and you can stretch the plastic, then that's recyclable in the same stream that the grocery bags are recyclable in. I think might be HDPE. I forget which material it is, but so if you like your cereal, the bags that are liners and cereal boxes, those will stretch. And if you test things at home, you'll find a lot of them do. There are some that do not, but just FYI. I'm not an expert, but I heard that from Charms.
Also, if they're crunchy, like the bags that grapes come in, those don't stretch. So Charm also said if it crunches, then it's not accepted because
It's not right.
Yeah.
I noticed, I just went to Charm last week, and they're now taking plastic straws, which I don't think I ever noticed a bin for that before. I was wondering if they were putting them in the hefty orange bag program. I don't know.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I'll have to look into that and see, when they started taking straws and what they're doing with them. Well, it's been a great conversation. So thank you all for sharing and asking questions. And Myrtle, thank you. I know Brooke had to sign off, but tell her we said thanks to her as well. So thank you all for sharing about your composting experiences. I have a few things to share. So I'm going to just share my screen really fast. So that you all can kind of see what I'm talking about. Just a couple of things coming up from the GIPL side of things. One, there's a new documentary out that is called Sacred Waters, the Okefenokee in Peril. And it's a film about what's happening with the Okefenokee Wildlife Refuge in South Georgia. For those of you who don't know, the Okefenokee is under threat from titanium mining. And so we are working with a couple of different organizations on some initiatives to stop the mining in the Okefenokee. So this is a great documentary that will kind of tell you about what's going on. And there will be some advocacy opportunities coming up for you all to participate in saving the swamp. There are also some other films that we have access to. So if your congregation is interested in a film screening, this is, I think, a great way to engage your congregation and kind of provide some education on a variety of topics. So I encourage you under our educational resources to check out our list of documentaries that we have access to. We'd love to plan a film screening event for your congregation. It's also the time of year that we are doing end of year fundraising. So every gift that's made between now and November 30th will be matched 1-to-1 up to $10,000. So if you're interested in making an individual gift or making a congregational contribution, we definitely are happy with any support that you can give us. And your support and your contributions help us to continue holding programs such as these and working in your congregations. So if you're interested in, planning some kind of pass the plate or fundraiser or donation at a congregational level, let us know and we can provide some language and some resources about that. Kind of along with this end of year fundraising campaign, we would love to get an impact statement from all of you. So I know some of you are kind of new to GIPL and new to this work, but we would love to hear how you have benefited from GIPL this year, whether that's through Green Team support, classes or workshops, a program that you've been involved with. If you attended our Eco Faith from Home series earlier this year, if you'd be willing to just write a short statement, there's an example here from a Green Team leader, but if you could just write a sentence or two about how your congregation has worked with GIPL this year, we'd love to be able to share that as part of our end of year fundraising campaign. And then lastly, we want to invite you all to our next Green Team Roundtable. It'll be the last one in 2021 on December 14th at noon. So we are alternating back and forth every other month from doing it at noon and doing it in the evenings, hoping to be able to accommodate people's schedules in that way. So since this one was an evening roundtable, the next one will be at noon, and this will be holiday themed, so please come prepared to share your favorite sustainable practices for the holidays. Joanna, did I leave anything out? Do you want to jump in with anything?
You said everything.
All right, well, thank you all. It was good to see all of you tonight, and we hope to see you again in December. If there's anything that we can do to support your congregation in the meantime, please reach out and let us know.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks, Hannah. Thanks, Joanna.
Thanks.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye-bye.